Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, November 12th. Hope everybody had an amazing day so far. In today's show, as always, every Tuesday, we do our NFL Power Rankings. That's right, all 32 teams coming up in just 1 second. We'll also go over our winners and losers from a wild Week 10 in the NFL. And, of course, the news of the offensive coordinator that was let go by the Bears earlier today. We will talk about that, what that means for the Chicago Bears, and if it saves their future and their head coach's job. But before we get into all of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, November 12th. But like I was saying, we are going to start off our show here with the NFL Power Rankings. Starting off, as always, with Part 1's ranked 32 to 17. Starting off this week with our brand new 32 rank. This is the first time they've been all the way down here at the bottom. It's the New York Giants. And there are a lot of teams that are bad in the NFL. Heading into this week, there were 9 teams that had 2 losses. Now there are 5. So if you are someone that thinks I'm ranking them too low, I understand. But what this comes down to is the level of quarterback play and the amount of inconsistencies that have been brought up with it. The New York Giants consistently have been the worst team in the NFL. Now, there's a lot of good pieces on it. This is not a team that I look at and say is hopeless. Tyrone Tracy's been playing really, really well. A lot of the rookies have stepped up. The defensive line is awesome. But with Daniel Jones back there, and even if they were to switch quarterbacks, even if they were to go to a Tommy DeVito or a Drew Lock, this team isn't going to get much better. They've found themselves at the bottom. A loss to the Panthers seems to get you to the bottom of the league. That's just how it goes sometimes. The Giants are at 32. At 31, we have the Dallas Cowboys. And again, every time I do my power rankings, I go and I cross-reference it with all the big ones. ESPN, NFL, New York Times, whatever. All those places that come out with power rankings. And this was by far the lowest. But I can't look at this team with the way that Cooper Rush played, how they're doing without Dak Prescott. Now, Cooper Rush has played better in the past. There's no doubt about it. I'm not going to sit here and say that he's going to be like this forever. Maybe this is just the way the Cowboys are. Everything that kind of worked for them last year, whether it be Cooper Rush or that defense or CeeDee Lamb, just has not. And now Jerry Jones is crashing out, for lack of a better term, when he's being questioned about anything. It's not a good sign for the future of this franchise, and there's not a lot of positives going on. Everything seems to be crumbling down in the kingdom of Jerry right now, and this is a lost season. I don't think they have the wherewithal to beat just about anybody right now. The Cowboys are number 31. At number 30, hold on. All right, I apologize. I guess the slideshow is not working. Whatever. Number 30, we have the New Orleans Saints. And again, I apologize for the slideshow bugging out there. Number 30 is the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints get a win, their first win in 8 weeks. The New Orleans Saints are coming off of a 7-game losing streak. They get out there and they have that new head coach magic, that interim head coach magic, and it gets them a win. Again, it's against a division opponent. That was a massive win for them. Marquez Valdes-Scantling comes out, catches 2 touchdowns, adds that deep threat that they haven't had since Rashid Shaheed went down with injury. That's a big part of their offense that was really working for them when they were winning games. Do I think it's going to be consistent enough for them to be this team that, can compete with anybody again? Absolutely not. I still think it's a good sign, and I think they're going to come crashing back down to where they were after this week. At number 29, we have the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders were coming off of a bye, and you can say they won a bye week. They're up 2 spots in this week's list. The Raiders here now are in a very bad spot. They have a quarterback controversy with two or three quarterbacks, depending on the health of their quarterbacks, that you just don't believe in, right? The one bright spot on this team has been Brock Bowers. He has yet to find the end zone. The defense has been incredibly inconsistent, if not bad at all times. And Antonio Pierce is on the hot seat. Technically his first year as a head coach, although he did take over in the interim last year. I don't know if he survives to the end of the season. The situation in Vegas is not very good, and they are our number 29 team. At 28, we have the Patriots. The Panthers. I apologize. I can't read my own writing here. The Panthers are number 28. The Panthers come off their second straight win. This is their first time that they've won 2 straight games since week 14 of 2022. That's almost 2 years ago now. That is insane. How long it has been. It's been since the first 3 weeks of 2021 since they won 3 straight. They're going to look to go for that after their bye week here this week. It is a huge undertaking for this team, and Bryce Young has come out and shown a lot of good. He's still not playing the best football, but he played clean football. Chuba Hubbard continues to prove that he deserves that contract that he got, and this is the Panthers team that's starting to get on a little bit of a roll. They're starting to show that, hey, not this year, obviously, but maybe they got something going with Bryce Young, and maybe he can still keep some going. That's what you need to do when you're a bad team. See if you have something in your young players, and that's what the Panthers are certainly figuring out right now with players like Bryce Young, players like Chuba Hubbard, and a couple of those guys on their defense. At number 27, we have the Chicago Bears. For the second week in a row, the Bears are the largest fallers. They have fallen 7 spots this week after falling 9 spots last week. 16-spot drop in the last 2 weeks, and that situation, that locker room, that team seemingly is broken in every possible way. The coaching staff seems to have completely lost the team. I think it was the right move to fire the offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron. I think they should have fired Matt Eberflus right now. He should get the axe soon. He's definitely got a short leash if things don't turn around. But the way that team is playing, there's no heart, there's no passion. Everything that was going well has seemingly fallen off a cliff since that loss at the Commanders. They're now under 500, and this is not looking good for the case of the Bears and their front office. At 26, the New England Patriots. They get a big win over the Bears here. They are up 3 spots this week, 19-3. Drake May gets his first victory, or I guess second, if you want to count the one against the Jets where Jacoby Brissett came in and finished it. But Drake May comes in, gets a big win on the road against a really talented Bears defense. He held them to 19 points. Generally, that's a recipe for success if you can hold a team to less than 20 points, which the Bears defense is playing really good. But that the Patriots holding the Bears to just 3 points against a very talented offense. There's a lot to like with this Patriots team. I love the job that Gerard Mayo has done as far as coaching goes. There's a lot to like for the future of the Patriots. Obviously, not right now. Again, we talk about it like with the Panthers. They're still at the bottom of the league. We still need to understand that when we're talking all these good things, there's not going to be good this season. But there is a lot to like as far as the small amount that we've seen out of the Patriots so far. They have a lot of improvements that we've already seen from last year. At 25, the Tennessee Titans. Will Levis comes back, throws 2 touchdowns to Calvin Ridley, gets a little bit of that offense going again. The defense doesn't play too terribly. They can't come away with a win against a really tough Chargers team. A Chargers team that's been very, very hot all season long. A Chargers team that has a pretty commanding spot on the playoffs right now at 6-3. This is a good Chargers team, and the Titans should have their heads held high. I think that was their best game that they've played all season long by a pretty wide margin, at least with Will Levis in there. So that's good to see. At least he's showing some improvements. At number 24, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is an interesting team to rank, and I didn't want to punish them too much because Mac Jones isn't the starter, right? But there was news that potentially Trevor Lawrence is out for the season. And in that case, the Jaguars need to fall a lot lower on the list. I'm going to wait to hear on that. This is a Jaguars team that, again, is awful. There's not a lot of good coming out of it, but you can see some of the positives. The defense played by far their best game, holding the Vikings to just 12 points. A very high-powered, or has been very high-powered, Vikings offense was held to virtually nothing all game. Only 12 points on the board. That is a win for a Jaguars defense that has been hit like Swiss cheese all season long. And maybe if they can keep that up, they can win a couple games. Mac Jones had a couple of chances to win the game. He screwed them up. 3 turnovers down the stretch is not how you want to end it. But there are still a few positives, especially with that defense, and the Jaguars stay at number 24. 23 goes to the Colts. And you heard my feelings about the Colts yesterday if you were listening. If you're going to keep losing, at least put Anthony Richardson in. Joe Flacco, you're not going to learn anything about. You've now lost 2 straight games with Flacco. You announce he's going to be the starter again. It doesn't make any sense to me at all why he is the starter, why you refuse to go back to Anthony Richardson. That is why this team is punished. This is a team that has some promise. This is a team that if they're able to just get the ball bouncing their way a couple times, the way the defense played, especially against the Bills, forcing a lot of turnovers against a Bills team that had been very, very clean with the football all season long. This is a team that could potentially make some noise in a weak AFC for the wild card race, but as long as they have Joe Flacco in there, I just can't believe in this team. I think he can play better than he has since he took over the starting job. But you can't just discount Anthony Richardson like that. It's a bad look for the team. It's a bad look for the front office, and the Colts are going to continue to struggle with it. They are at number 23. 22 goes to Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, and I don't know what's going on with the Jets. They get a huge win against the Texans, and then they show up against the Cardinals, and they only put 6 points up on the board. That's frankly not okay. Aaron Rodgers, I know he gets hurt in this game, but he needs to play better. The entire Jets defense needs to play better. I don't know what's going on with them, but this is a Jets team that with that loss, I'm ready to say their season is done. And you look at their future, there's not a lot left. There's not a lot to look forward to with this Jets team. They're bad, and they went all in, and that's the worst situation you can find yourself in as a team. Not enviable. The Jets are in a lot of trouble. 21, the Browns. They are coming off of a bye week. I want to see more of Jameis Winston. Obviously, Jameis Winston is going to give you his roller coaster of a football player. You don't know if you're going to get 5 touchdowns or 5 interceptions or maybe even both. Either way, he gives this Brown team a better chance to win, and I think they enjoy playing for him a little more, at least in the 2 games that we have seen. Cedric Tillman coming out has really emerged as a young, talented star, and I think this is a Browns team that I think can make a lot of noise coming up a little bit later in this season. Number 20, we have the Denver Broncos. They lose a heartbreaker to the Chiefs. A chip shot field goal where the protection just gives out and the Chiefs block the field goal that would have sent them to their first loss on the year. Instead, as good as Bo Nix played, as good as his connection is with Courtland Sutton, they can't get the win. Their offense still struggles. That defense continues to play really good ball, and that's why the Broncos are still up here. They still have a shot, but losing in that heartbreaking fashion against the Chiefs in a game where they honestly should have won. But they just kind of got bull rushed by the Chiefs on that final play, and they end up losing in heartbreaking fashion. Can't punish them too much, but they're at number 20. 19 goes to the Miami Dolphins. A huge win for them on Monday Night Football over a Rams team that I was ready to move into the top 10 with a win. This was a Miami Dolphins win that wasn't super flashy. You had a couple of big plays, especially on that first drive. There was a period there where they couldn't stop turning the ball over. Field goals galore from this team. Tyreek Hill got back into the end zone. You're starting to see that offense get its situation right, but that Miami defense was the most impressive thing. This is a Rams team that had started to get a bit of an offensive engine cooking. Instead, the Miami defense came in, shut them down, forced turnovers, didn't let Kyron Williams into the end zone, and made Matthew Stafford make a lot of mistakes. That was a huge win for them, and I won't say it lets them keep pace in the division, but it lets them at least think they have a shot to make the playoffs, which I think is where they need to be. 18 goes to the Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks, again, coming off of a bye, they made interesting roster moves. They released a linebacker that has started every single one of their games. I'm not sure what's going on. The defense has been an issue. Maybe they think that's going to fix it. Jury's still out on the Seahawks. They're going to be hovering around this middle point because, like I've said, every single time we get to them, they are that litmus test for the NFL. If you lose to them, you're probably a bad you're probably a bad team. If you beat them, you're probably a good team. Now, it's not 100%. Obviously, the Giants got to win over them, and you see where they're ranked right now. But that's just the general feeling I get with the Seahawks. They can beat any bad team and they can lose to any good team. Not necessarily the worst spot to be, but they're still in the race for the division, so they need to pull something together quick if they want to keep on it. And number 17 goes to the Cincinnati Bengals. That was a phenomenal game. Jamar Chase, 264 yards and 3 touchdowns. Joe Burrow, over 400 yards passing. That was a great game played by them offensively, but the same issues rear their head again. They cannot stop anybody defensively. The Ravens were able to get just about anything they wanted in that second half. They end up failing on a 2-point conversion. Controversy or not, they end up losing that game. I think it was the right decision to go for 2. Joe Burrow, definitely in the MVP race, although I'm not sure how valid his case is going to be because the team just keeps losing games, but they're not out of it yet. They need to start stringing some victories together. This is a good Bengals team, and they're going to keep climbing. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to finish up our power rankings. 16-1 coming up around the bend. Make sure you stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient. Hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing. Sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown. Get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, I'll diss my sound. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the news it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, November 12th. If you are just tuning in, we just went over the first half of the NFL Power Rankings for Week 11, 32-17. In this segment, we turn our attention to the top half of the NFL, 16-1 in just 1 second. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, November 12th. But like I was saying, we are going to finish up our NFL Power Rankings. We're going to see if we can get that slideshow working. Doesn't look like it's going. At number 16, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is a difficult Tampa Bay team to rank because they are playing like a top 10 caliber team, but they don't have the personnel to finish it off. In the last couple weeks, against some pretty quality opponents, they have come this close to pulling out victories, almost beating the 49ers, losing on a walk-off field goal, although that game was a little further apart than it may have seemed at first look. Almost beating the Kansas City Chiefs, sending that game to overtime, losing in overtime there. That is 2 straight weeks, losing to 2 top 10 10 opponents. That is not an easy thing to do, keeping it close with how battered and injured, especially that offense has been. Baker Mayfield playing some of his best football of his career right now. He looks really, really good. He just doesn't have the supporting cast he needs to make all of the plays, which is not on him. But it's part of this Bucs squad, and they're going to sit at 16, still in the top half of the NFL, but kind of bordering on the bottom there. They're just not a team that I really look for to go super far this season. Number 15, we have the Falcons. They're still the best team in that division, but it's not very good. The Falcons have the ability to be a top 10 kind of team. They're just so incapable of being consistent. They can't play a full game of football, whether it be on the defensive end or the offensive end. They get stuck in something that doesn't work, and when it doesn't work, they're stuck in it. They can't make adjustments. That's the issue with this team. This is a Falcons team I want to say is really good. But when their game plan doesn't work right away, they're in some trouble because for whatever reason, they just can't play consistent elite ball on both ends at the same time, and they have yet to play a complete game of football. At 14, we have the Rams. They're a little bit higher than some other people have them, but I still believe in this team. A brutal game by them. Matthew Stafford had one of his worst games as a Ram. The Miami defense came up and played huge, but they're getting healthier. And I still believe in this Rams team. They're a game or two behind the Cardinals for that division. They're still right in that race. They're gonna need that. They're gonna need to win that division. And the Cardinals are really heating up. The way that the two teams ahead of them are playing scares me just a little bit. But I do think still that this is a really good Rams team that, if you're not careful, can be very dangerous. But both of those teams, the Rams and the Dolphins, are playing their best football of the season right now. The Dolphins just a little bit more on Monday Night Football. At number 13, we have the Houston Texans. This is a team that is dropping and dropping fast. They've now lost 2 straight games in pretty heartbreaking fashion, not the way that you want it to go. This is not a good look for the Houston Texans. They haven't scored in the second half of back-to-back weeks, and without Stephon Diggs, I didn't realize how much of a difference it would make. They're getting Nico Collins back, which is going to be huge, but that run game has been very ineffective in recent weeks. Teams have been able to crowd the box now that they don't have those receivers taking them over the top. Hopefully Nico Collins can help fix that for the Texans, but they're in a bit of a trouble. They have a pretty commanding lead over the Colts in their division. After beating the Colts twice already, they have all the tiebreakers. Really helps them out, even though they're going through a bit of a rough patch here. So they're not out of it, but the way they're playing is very concerning for DeMeco Ryans and this Houston team. They get the Cowboys this week on Monday Night Football. That is a huge matchup for them. At number 12, we have the Vikings. And I don't want to punish the Vikings too much because they continue to win games. But of late, Sam Darnold has been playing his worst football. He's been playing awful. And it really showed this week, especially against this Jaguars team. He played awful against the Colts last week, still got a win. He played awful against the Jaguars, still got a win, and a lot of props goes to that Vikings defense. That Vikings defense is phenomenal. But Sam Darnold, the way that he is playing football right now, makes me remember the Sam Darnold of old. All of that talk of Sam Darnold being MVP is gone now. Only putting up 12 points against a Jaguars defense that has let just about everybody go wild on them is not acceptable. You have Justin Jefferson. You shouldn't be making all of these mistakes. The Vikings continue to disappoint me of late, even though they still have a really good record and they're still in the playoff picture. I don't see them as contenders anymore until Sam Darnold can figure himself out again. Vikings fall 6 spots to number 12. At number 11, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. I have been low on the Steelers all year. And I understand if you still think this is low for the Steelers, but what Russell Wilson has brought to this team is a whole new kind of energy. People were putting the Steelers up in the top 10 with Justin Fields, and I didn't necessarily have an issue with it. I did think they were wrong, but with Russell Wilson, I can kind of understand it. I still see them in the top 5, which crazy, I think. But regardless of that, his ability to just say, screw it, the receivers are down there, really has opened up this offense. Najee Harris is playing the best football of his career right now, just kind of out of nowhere, which doesn't make any sense. And Russell Wilson has revived his career in Pittsburgh. You get George Pickens, who is the premier jump ball receiver in the NFL. What he can do on contested catch situations is ridiculous. They get the old version of George Pickens in Mike Williams, who also one of the best contested catch receivers in the NFL. I know he struggled when he was with the New York Jets. They just weren't using him as a contested catch guy. They were giving him back shoulders. They were giving him low balls. I didn't understand how they were using him, but you see them start to be used effectively this week against the Commanders, a very good Commanders team. The Steelers, that's their first quality win. And they have won 7 games this season, but that is their first quality win of the season, and people need to understand that. They're getting the respect now I think they deserve, but that is their first quality win, and they're about to go through the gauntlet. I need to see them get through it and get to the other side, but they should make the playoffs regardless. This is a good Steelers team. At number 10, entering the top 10 for the first time all season, it's the Los Angeles Chargers, another team that I have been slow to move up in my rankings. They've impressed me every possible way. Really, this is a Chargers team that I said, oh, they're nothing if they fall behind. Now they've decided, oh, we can pass the ball. Justin Herbert, they realized, is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, and they've started to use him the way that you need to use him. You still have that run-first style offense, which is fine. It works, especially in today's NFL, where if you're an elite team, you need a good running game, which kind of was just like a 180 shift from last year. Crazy how fast that happened, but it has. If you have an elite run game, you look at all the top teams in the NFL, they all have a very good run game. The teams at the bottom cannot run the ball most of the time. There's obviously exceptions to all of these rules, but in general, that's how it's been going. This is a Chargers team that has impressed me around every single corner, and I am done sleeping on them. 6-3 have a very good chance to make the playoffs here. Their defense, I think, is for real. I know they still really haven't played any crazy opponents, but they did a good job against the high-powered offenses that they have faced. The Chiefs, the Cardinals, these teams, they're holding them to around 20 points each time. This is a very, very good Chargers team, and they are in the top 10 for the first time. Speaking of the Cardinals, they are at number 9. Their highest rank. They're up 4 spots, and if you look at their 4-game winning streak, in 3 of those 4 games, their defense has not allowed a touchdown. That is insane. In 3 of their last 4 games, the opposing team has not scored a touchdown on the Arizona Cardinals. You came into this season, or I came into this season, expecting a lot out of the Cardinals, honestly. I was high on the Cardinals. I thought that offense was going to be the engine that kept them in games. I thought they were going to play a lot of shootouts, lose a couple of those, and I thought the defense was going to be the thing they were competing against. Instead, their defense has hugely stepped up. The offense has kind of lagged behind a little bit. Marvin Harrison hasn't become that offensive engine I thought he was going to be. James Conner still plays good. Kyler Murray's been a little bit inconsistent this season, but when he's on, he is on, right? This is a Cardinals team that, with that defense playing great, is a very dangerous team in the NFC. Honestly, they're a team that I think could make a lot of noise if that defense continues to play the way that they have over the last couple of weeks, and they're in the top 10 for the first time. At number 8, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are a team that I struggle to figure out. They absolutely dominate the Cowboys. The Cowboys stood no chance in that game. I still don't trust this team, and the reason is only because of their head coach, Nick Sirianni. I cannot trust that man as far as I can throw him, and I can't throw him very far. Nick Sirianni is a guy that I look at, and he has consistently, not every week, but a large majority of the time, made a lot of wrong decisions. All season long, he has made incorrect decisions when it comes to extra points, when to kick, 4th down situations especially. He's a guy that I don't think helps this team get any better, but this team is stacked with so much talent that it just doesn't matter most of the time. The Eagles are at number 8. At number 7, it's the Commanders. I know they're coming off of a loss. Second loss in the last 3 weeks for the Washington Commanders. They probably should have won that game. Honestly, I know that's kind of like a revisionist history of me, but when you take a look at that fourth down that got called against them, I think Zach Ertz had the first down. That would have put them into near field goal range, and I think they would have made it there. That's a lot of ifs and buts, but I think they should have won that game. So I'm not going to penalize them for that. They played a good game against a really good Steelers defense. Jaden Daniels played good. Wasn't his best game, but Terry McLaurin, his connection with Terry is scary. Just nothing else to say there. That is a really, really fun team to watch, and they're only going to get better. Once they get Brian Robinson back, that team is going to be an issue for everybody in the NFC, and they need to look out. At number 6, we have the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers get Christian McCaffrey back, but that wasn't the story of this game. The story of this game, Ricky Pearsall scores his first NFL touchdown, got shot in the chest in a robbery attempt earlier. Jake Moody misses 3 field goals, hits the walk-off field goal, so people don't talk about it, but they could have won that game by a lot more. They still settle for way too many field goals. They kicked 6 field goals in this game, missed 3 of them. Not a good look for this team. Jake Moody coming off of injury, he'll get himself right, but they need to figure out how to close out drives if they want to keep climbing in the NFL. Getting into the top 5. At number 5, we have the Green Bay Packers. The Packers at number 5, they're on a bye week. I'm not going to penalize them for anything. I know I'm higher on this Packers team than a lot of people are, but I still think this is a Packers team that's better than the Niners, better than the Eagles, better than the Commanders. And I can't put them any lower than 5 right now. I just think they beat all of these teams. The way that Jordan Love has been playing football, I know the last time we saw them come out wasn't a very good look against a good Lions team, but still, I believe in this Packers team a lot. They're at number 5. At number 4, we have the Buffalo Bills. They're coming off of maybe their worst week all season long, and I know they got absolutely destroyed by a Baltimore Ravens team earlier on this season, but against a Colts team where they get a win by 10 points, that offense was very sloppy. They cannot continue to play like that. That was by far their worst game. Josh Allen had not been turning the ball over. It wasn't just him. Other players turned the ball over a lot for the Bills this weekend. They need to clean that up if they want to continue to be ranked this high, but they get a big win against a Colts team that can cause you issues if you let them cause you issues, and they escape with a win there. Big for their defense. Pick 6 to really help seal the game there. Big for the Bills' defense. Getting into the top 3, we have the Baltimore Ravens. They played an absolute masterclass of a game offensively. Defense still needs a lot of work. It's the same old story with the Ravens week in and week out. We know what they need to do. We know what they are. They're going to get some help with the addition of some of Tre'Davious White in the secondary. Hopefully that makes a difference. Doesn't seem like that Kyle Hamilton injury is that bad, thank goodness. We will see, though, lots of stuff, again, to work out on that defense, but Lamar just playing like an MVP. Derrick Henry playing like an offensive player of the year. Maybe he should get some MVP votes as well. It's crazy how good that Baltimore offense is, and they're kind of built for the playoffs. Number 2 goes to the Lions. They played by far their worst game of the season, but somehow they escape with a win. 5 interceptions and find a way to win is not something that should ever be a sentence that is said in the NFL. And yet it's something that happened. Jared Goff somehow got bailed out. But the Texans, I don't know what they were doing in that second half, but that offense completely collapsed. The defense for the Lions really, really stepped up big, and Jared Goff made a couple of big throws, especially in that fourth quarter. Jake Bates comes up huge, just barely fitting it through the uprights for the tying and winning field goals. And the Lions get a huge win to keep pace in the NFC at number 1. And at number 1, you could have guessed it. It's the Kansas City Chiefs. It's always been the Chiefs. It always has. It always will be the Chiefs. Seemingly, they escape with yet another way to win the football game. I cannot believe it. A blocked field goal to win the game. A chip shot field goal that, by all accounts, should have spelled certain doom for them. They find the weak spot in that offensive line, get through, get a hand on the kick, recover it, game is over. A massive win for the Chiefs. They escape with it. Look, you can complain about it all you want. You can call it devil magic all you want, but the Chiefs they win games. And winning games, again, is a skill. It's not just that they're winning games, they're finding ways to win games in things you're not ready for. That's good coaching. And that's something that a lot of teams just don't have anymore. That's why the Chiefs are winning games the way they are. Andy Reid deserves a lot more credit. He gets so much credit as it is, but that defense is amazing. This is a full and complete Kansas City Chiefs team, and they're at number 1 yet again. But let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the NFL Power Rankings. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we turn our attention to winners and losers. We got 5 winners, 5 losers from a crazy week in the NFL in Week 10. Make sure you stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube. Absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you were just tuning in, we just went over the NFL Power Rankings 32-1. In this segment, we go to our winners and losers in the NFL. Much like college football we did yesterday, we've got 5 winners and 5 losers in the NFL this week. We're going to start off with the winners, but before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those 2 things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, November 12th. But like I was saying, we are going to start off with our winners in this week of the NFL. Week 10 winners. Again, 5 winners, 5 losers. Starting off with the winners here at number 5, very simply, it's the MVP race. This was going to be a stacked race from the beginning. We did our mid-season NFL MVP report earlier on in the season, or earlier on last week, I should say. We had 3 finalists: Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen. Josh Allen probably didn't have his best game, but Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson just played an absolute masterclass against each other. That was a beautiful game of football to watch for offense. Obviously, if you like defense, turn your eyes away. You don't want to watch that one. But as far as the MVP race goes, that is cinema right there. That is a clash of maybe the top 2 in the MVP race going at it. Went to Lamar Jackson. Is he going to win his 3rd MVP, 2nd in a row? He might. He is playing out of his mind right now. That MVP race is going to be so much fun down the stretch, especially if the Bengals start winning games the way that he is playing. An extra shout out there to Jamar Chase. Not in the MVP race, but we're not going to get to him for the rest of this segment. So shout out, 264 yards and 3 touchdowns. Not an easy thing to do. Shout out him. Our number 4 winner. It's going to go to the Chargers, but more specifically to the coaching staff for the Chargers. This is a Chargers team that came in with very little expectations. Obviously, we know that Harbaugh is a winner. Everywhere he goes, they win. But this is a team that came in with the mentality that we're going to run the ball. And they did that. They started off the season running the ball. They didn't get Justin Herbert involved in the offense. Justin Herbert, who in my opinion is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. They have been able to see what this roster is made of and not get stuck in their ways, not get stuck in the we're only going to run the ball, we're not going to let Justin Herbert sling it, and they've continued to be a run-first offense. That's fine. They deserve that. With the way that J.K. Dobbins is playing, they deserve to be in that run-first kind of mode. But it's also super important that they see, and I think they are, the value of a quarterback like Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert comes out and he has one of the strongest arms, point blank period, in the NFL. Justin Herbert is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, and they're letting him go out there. That is a great change by the coaching staff, and it's really cool that they're able to notice these changes and make that difference in the middle of the season. Doesn't happen that often. Our number 3 winner is the Cardinals. More specifically, the Cardinals defense. I read this stat when we did our power rankings about the Cardinals, but they now have, in 3 of their 4 games on this 4-game winning streak, not allowed a touchdown to the opposing team. That's insane. This is a Cardinals defense that I had ranked as one of the bottom 5 in the league heading into this season. And through the first 6 weeks of this season, I felt very justified in that ranking. They didn't show me anything that made me think, you know what? I'm going to change my mind about this Cardinals defense. They had a couple games over there where they were able to step up a bit, but they never really showed me that, hey, this is a Cardinals team that I need to stop sleeping on as far as the defense goes. And then in this win streak, they have done what barely ever happens in the NFL. You barely ever hold teams without a touchdown anyway in the league, but to do it 3 out of 4 games, 2 games in a row against some solid opponents. The Bears, who, yes, they're struggling, but had, a little bit of momentum earlier on in the season. They did it against the Chargers a couple of weeks ago on Monday Night Football. And then, of course, they do it last week against... And then, of course, they do it this week against the Jets, a Jets team that had a lot of momentum. This is a Jets team that was coming off of their biggest win in a very, very long time in their franchise. That was a huge, huge win for them, and they're just shut everything down. The Cardinals are the number 3 winner this week. Number 2 winner, it's the Chiefs. They keep finding ways to win, and I can't ignore it anymore. The Chiefs, not that I really was ignoring it, but that special teams for the Chiefs really stepped up. It hasn't been the usual suspects at the time. In the beginning of the year, we thought the offense was going to be great. They finally got some receivers. They were going to turn it around. The thing that kept them in games, kept them winning games, wasn't the offense. It was the defense, specifically that linebacker core. And that linebacker core, I still think, deserves a lot of love. It still deserves a little more love than I think it's getting, because I think it's the best linebacker core in the league, and I think it's the best defense in the league. But special teams really stepped up huge. Obviously, we know all about kickers. Kickers are important, but the special teams, the amount of work that the Chiefs must put in at special teams, the amount of film that they must watch to find the weakness in that Broncos offensive line and exploit it at the most opportune time. The Chiefs, great coaching. They keep finding ways to win games, and they're still undefeated. This is a scary Chiefs team. They're only going to get better. They're only going to get more healthy. And, come on. They're just really good at football, guys. The Chiefs are the number 2 winner this week, which puts us at number 1. The number 1 winner, the team that made me change my opinion on them completely this week, was the Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers came out there and showed me something I have not seen from them all season long, which is a competent offense. Against the Giants, a game that their last game that they won heading into the bye, the offense, while it still worked, was not very competent, if we're being fair. They had a punt return touchdown, and they didn't really get much more offensively. This was a huge performance by them. Russell Wilson, while he wasn't the most accurate, was able to put the ball in harm's way without turning it over that much. And maybe that goes to point at how bad the Commanders' secondary has been, because it's been bad. Mike Williams scores his first touchdown as a Steeler in his first game. Congratulations. That is a huge get for them. George Pickens makes some of the most insane catches I've ever seen. And this is a Steelers team that is changing my mind. We all know about that defense, but the way that Russell Wilson is transforming that offense, this is a Steelers team that could be very dangerous, and they're the number 1 winner of the week. But let me know what you think. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we turn our attention to the losers this week in the NFL. The top 5 losers this week coming up in just 1 second here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, November 12th. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over the winners, the top 5 winners from the NFL in Week 10. A big week for a lot of teams. Bad teams got a lot of wins. Good teams got a lot of wins. The middle kind of suffered a lot in this one. But regardless of that, we're going to get to our top 5 losers of the week in just 1 second. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, November 12th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the losers here in just 1 second. Top 5 losers this week from Week 10 in the NFL. And we're going to start at number 5. And this is a team that I talked about yesterday. It's the Colts. The Colts are at number 5, and it has to do with the quarterback situation. I've talked a lot about this, and I still haven't found a reasonable explanation for what they're doing at quarterback. The Colts are a team that they're just fine. They're going to be around 500 all year long. And that's fine if that's what the Colts are going to be, but they clearly want to be a playoff team. They're not a playoff team. The way that Joe Flacco is playing ball, it doesn't show you that he should continue to be the starter, and yet now they've named him the starter for the 3rd straight week. I did understand the benching of Anthony Richardson back a couple of weeks ago when it happened. It was a really bad look for him. He hadn't played his best football. People were all over him about it. He wasn't accurate. He tapped himself out of a game. Not a good look. I completely understand wanting him out of there at that point. But now 2 weeks later, when your justification was, Joe Flacco gives us the best chance to win. And I wasn't arguing then. They've lost 2 straight games. They've played awful. Joe Flacco, in particular, has played awful. They refuse to go back to him, and I don't know what the relationship is like there. I don't know the real reason, because I don't think they're really communicating that to the public, or really saying why. Apparently, they didn't communicate it to Anthony Richardson himself, but I've been saying this the whole time. The biggest weakness with Anthony Richardson's game, a well-known project quarterback, when he was drafted just last year, he's played 10 games in the NFL. A well-known project quarterback was his accuracy. And there's a lot of things you can learn on the bench in the NFL. You can learn how to read defenses. You can learn how to be a professional. You can learn how to handle a team and be a leader. One thing you can't learn on the bench is how to be more accurate. The most important thing with accuracy not only is, of course, throwing with anticipation, but it's your relationship with the receiver, the ability to know when they're going to break, how they're going to break, how fast they're going to be, where you need to put the ball, how much zip you need to put on the ball, all of these factors. And it only works when you get these chemistry with the number ones, with the receivers. He's not learning that right now in practice. He's not going to get any better, and you're not going to know if he's the answer if he sits on the bench. The Colts continue to be losers. They are the number 5 loser this week. I don't understand what's going on over there in that building. Number 4, it's the Texans. For whatever reason, in the second half, their offense completely shuts down. I know that offensive line is a problem, and for some reason, the offensive line tried to steal the football from C.J. Stroud. Not something I've ever seen happen before. Forces a fumble, almost turns the ball over in a very crucial spot, ends up making them miss a field goal on that drive because of it. That is not a good look for the offensive line. It's already struggling a little bit, and now you're stealing the football from your own quarterback, letting them get out of a sack. I do not understand it. It's just a mess over there. That they're going to get Nico Collins back. Maybe that should help them. But right now, the way that they've been able to play in the second half for the last 2 weeks has been abysmal. They had 5 interceptions in that game, and they didn't win. You cannot be a serious NFL franchise, get 5 interceptions in a game, and still lose. I really don't get it. I really don't. But they found a way to lose anyway to the Lions, or maybe the Lions found a way to win. The Texans are a number 4 loser. Our number 3 loser, it's the Jets. The Jets are done. I'm ready to pronounce their season dead. I'm ready to read the eulogy at their funeral here. They're done. Aaron Rodgers continues to prove that he is not all the way back. I don't know if he ever will be all the way back. He doesn't seem like he's all the way bought in with the New York Jets, but they're stuck with him for at least another year or two. He might retire. I don't think he will. Everything that he's asked for has happened. They got Devontae Adams. They hired the coach he wanted. They fired, allegedly, they fired the coach that he wanted fired. They've brought in all of his friends. It has not worked. They rebuilt the offensive line. The defense that was so good last year has fallen apart. The Jets cannot get anything done. I don't know what's happened. There might be a curse over that team. But for whatever reason, Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets, his career is absolutely tanked, and the Jets have no future right now unless magically they can find a way to turn it around next year. They're all the way in, though, so they don't really have much of a choice. At number 2, our number 2 losers, it's going to the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones in particular. Jerry Jones, king of the castle over there. All the walls are starting to close in. Everything that worked last year seemingly falling off this year. Dak Prescott, second in MVP voting last year, not playing his best, gets injured. They already paid him the biggest contract in NFL history. CeeDee Lamb, not the same receiver. They already paid him. You have the defense incredibly injured, but also cannot stop a run of your nose right now. This is an absolute embarrassment for the Dallas Cowboys. They are playing like one of the worst teams in football, and to top it all off, they have, and this is something that if you've watched football for a while, you've known, the issue with the sun in Jerry World over there in Dallas. It's caused them to lose a touchdown in the last game, and Jerry Jones refuses to admit that it's a problem. We all knew it's been an issue. We've seen it before. It's made its way to be known in playoff games, in many games in the past, but this is just a very, very obvious one, having your star wide receiver not see the ball because of it. The Cowboys are the number 2 loser, and they just can't stop getting in their own way, really. And that leads us to number 1. The number 1 loser of the week. It's the Chicago Bears. For the second week in a row, the Chicago Bears are the biggest losers. They cannot figure themselves out. They continue to shoot themselves in the foot, and I think it's the coaching. They've made a switch. We'll talk about it in our next segment with firing the offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron. We all knew that one wasn't going to work out. But everyone seems to have checked out. Even Caleb Williams seemingly checked out, done with that coaching staff. It's not enough to fire just the offensive coordinator. Matt Eberflus needs to be gone. The Bears could not get anything going offensively. That defense played really good, but against a Patriots team to only put up 3 points is ridiculous. They need to be better than that. The Bears are the number 1 loser of the week, and I don't see any kind of sign of stopping. That's a new record, 2 times being the number 1 loser of the week in a row. Not a good look for the Chicago Bears. But anyway, let me know what you think. Who are the biggest winners, the biggest losers of this week? Love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we talk more about the Chicago Bears. They fired offensive coordinator Shane Waldron. We'll talk about what that means for their future, for Matt Eberflus, and the rest of that team. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, November 12th. If you are just tuning in, we just went over the winners and losers from Week 10 in the NFL. In this segment, we finish off our show talking about the big news, the firing in the NFL, as the Bears have officially parted ways with offensive coordinator Shane Waldron. We'll talk about what that means for the team in just 1 second, but before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, November 12th. But like I was saying, we're going to finish off our show here talking a little bit about the Bears and how they fired offensive coordinator Shane Waldron. Very simple as it goes here. The Bears' offense has been disgraceful. They've won 4 games. They've now fallen below 500. All of the teams they've beaten are at the very bottom of the league. 2 or 3 wins for every single one of them. The Titans' win was not on them. It was all on the defense. And the Seahawks fans, who had Shane Waldron as their offensive coordinator last year, could have told you he is not the answer. But they throw him in. Matt Eberflus is a guy that probably should have been fired last season. He is still there. I assume he's the scapegoat. And yes, Shane Waldron has been an issue. The players seem to have noticed that and are taking control, but that is not a good thing for a coach. Not just for the fact that the players clearly don't like them, but the fact that they don't respect them. They don't trust them. They don't want them to make the decisions. It's part of the reason why I think the Bears seemingly are falling apart at the seams. Tyreek Stevenson obviously has that big issue on the Hail Mary. We see a huge issue with DJ Moore last week, and now everything is just falling apart. The offensive line continues to be a huge issue for this Bears squad, something that is not easily fixed by a snap of the fingers, but they have talent up and down the roster. Obviously, we've seen how great that defense has played, their ability to turn the ball over, to keep them in the game despite how bad the offense has played, and now with Shane Waldron gone, that should open things up for this team, in theory. Shane Waldron was an issue. I want to see how it goes next week against. I want to see how it goes in the next couple weeks when they take on their next few opponents. That's going to be that's going to make a big difference for the way we look at a future with Matt Eberflus. They have the Bears, then the Vikings, and the Lions. 3 division games coming back to back to back. That is going to be a huge decider of what this team looks like in the future. I'm not too optimistic for it. I think this will definitely help. I think they might be able to put up a little bit of a fight even against some of these teams. And it's a division matchup, so anything can happen. Maybe this helps them win back the locker room because it doesn't seem like any of them really like that guy anyway. But I'm not too optimistic for the Bears this season. Hopefully they get new coaching staff. Hopefully that'll fix things. Shane Waldron is gone. Celebrate Chicago. It's a good move. But let me know what you think. Love to hear your thoughts on this. And thank you everybody so much for tuning in to today's episode of Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I have been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. We will be back tomorrow, same time, same place, talking about all of the major news across the world of sports. We'll talk about the NBA in-season tournament that kicks off tonight, rookie report, everything else that's going on in the world. I'll see you then. You all have a good one. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.